Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode 276 of the Thoughtium Navigating Now virtual roundtable series. I'm Anthony Ewing, Chief Brand Officer, co-founder here at Thoughtium, and we're so excited to be back at the table week over week to bring you leaders and leadership topics that matter most. And today's episode, the title of today's episode is Owning Your Path in a Rapidly Changing World. So many of us within organizations, large and small, are talking about, how we kind of meet the moment as technology continues to expand. Workforces maybe are contracting a bit. And at the same time, we have more choice than ever professionally. And so today, at the center of this conversation, we are bringing forward, a leader out in a handful of different communities that I think really embodies the agility needed to really take charge of your career in a world where, the business landscape is changing so much every day. So we want to welcome Sam Arms to the group. Sam is a business development strategist. He's also a community builder. He's involved in politics as well, too. I mean, it's like, what doesn't he do? And I think that's really at the core of today's episode. So Sam, welcome to the table.
Thanks for having me back, Anthony. We were just talking about the last time that I was on here, how much has changed. So I think it's cool. It's awesome to be back and talking to you and updating you on everything.
Yeah. I mean, it is true. I'm sure all of us can relate. You catch up with somebody who you haven't caught up with over the last 3 or 4 years, and chances are their life looks totally different.
Yeah.
And I think it was fun to reconnect with you because, you and I had a Navigating Now discussion in the throes of what was the pandemic. And also particularly in kind of the rise of the, alternative currency, cryptocurrency market.
Mm-hmm.
You were really kind of at the forefront of that. Tell us what you're up to these days.
Yeah, I think the big transition we saw is, back when we last talked, crypto was super hot, super sexy, but it was also still a controversial issue, especially in
Mm.
politics. Still trying to figure out how do we regulate it? How do we want to be regulated? Scams here, scams there, but still like a solid industry trying to push forward. And now it's as crazy as this sounds, it's been normalized in a lot of ways. Wall
Yeah.
Street adoption, Main Street adoption, political adoption. It's not near the fight that it was, 2, 3 years ago. So, I started in this industry in 2017, being one of the first kind of political activists. And now I don't want to say mission accomplished, but a large part of what I set out to do has been achieved. And now it goes from how do we make sure our industry is not outright banned to now they're arguing over niche issues. So
Yeah.
it's been interesting as my career has started in this sector. And now that I've kind of branched out, this sector itself has matured and become more established.
Yeah. That's so interesting. You talk about kind of the personality of crypto over the years. And it is true that the crypto industry from my perspective has as it has settled in, as a real, option for folks, it's also become a little bit more boring, it's become a little bit more
Absolutely.
predictable, and people are, they're referring to it as they would almost gold, in many cases. And I suppose that is due to, in large part, to a lot of the hard work that you and others who really kind of stood at the helm of this movement in a time where everybody was questioning it, and just really believing in something and embodying that belief.
I think you said it so well, and it could be an entire episode, but you're right, it's boring. And that's a sign that we've won, right? When things are boring, I mean, how exciting is my iPhone, right?
Yeah.
Not really exciting because it's so built into the system.
Mhm.
Things that are built into the system aren't exciting. Controversy is exciting. And where there's controversy, you have things that are not ingrained in the system as they are. So
Yeah.
you're totally right. I enjoy friction. I enjoy hard scenarios. I enjoy new things. So, over the years, as crypto has gotten more boring, I have branched out in what I've done and found other new exciting things like AI, like things in military tech and ed tech and whatnot.
Mm.
So it's so true. I find myself, I'm like, huh, I get kind of bored now
Yeah.
sometimes. And that's when I think it's a good time to say, okay, maybe I need to look at something slightly different.
Yeah. And what we're talking today about kind of owning your path in a world that's changing so quickly around us. And I'm seeing more and more, great leaders out there that have taken atypical paths, right?
Mhm.
The career path of yesteryear used to be rooted in, formal education. You then had to kind of pay your dues. In most cases, that was working for a large organization, and then you collected enough experience to go out and explore and start something on your own. And you were lucky if you did all of that in the first, 15, 20 years of your career.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we just see folks like yourself who, are accelerating your career path with real world experience. And so, Sam, I'm curious, as your let's call it interest, or maybe even the need for your work in the crypto space started to decline. Um, what were some of the things that you felt like you needed in order to make a quick pivot, whether that was like a sense of agility, a sense of confidence? Like, as you look back, the pivot that you made now into some of these new lines of work, which we're going to talk about, what were the key ingredients to you being able to do that without, feeling like you were taking a step back or you were behind?
I feel like, oh, this is going to sound funny to say, but the most important thing was following my passion, which was actually
Yeah.
politics, not crypto. So a lot of people always
Oh,
assume
interesting.
because I was doing crypto that my passion was crypto, but my passion was always politics first. And
Mm,
crypto was just new. It was a new technology. I was a new guy, and I saw a bridge that I could bring these two fields together and marry them correctly. So for me, it wasn't so much of a pivot away from my passion. It was how do I channel my passion in a different ways. So I used crypto. I had a fun time and still have a fun time. I mean, I passed 3 bills in Florida just this legislative session like 2 months ago.
wow.
So I still have that passion broadly, but then I decided, okay, how do I be flexible? And I be flexible in the ways that whatever opportunities come my way, are they exciting and do I want to do them? And so just kind of being open to the universe and letting it send things my way because as any I think business person understands, when you're in the world of relationships, which I think is always the key, kind of overstated, maybe understated, but when people trust you, other opportunities come your
Yeah.
way. And so
Yeah.
all the work that I've done in crypto politically, well, those same political people have told me, hey, so we have a problem totally unrelated to crypto. Could you
Mm,
help us? And I just go, absolutely. Let me take a look. And if I find it exciting and I find it fun, then it's a very easy yes.
yeah.
Right. So I think that's been the key because I think a lot of people will go, well, for example, they could have said, well, crypto is my passion. What do I do? Well, if crypto is my passion, what I would have done is what some of my colleagues would have done where I would have simply gone and worked for a large crypto firm,
Yep.
right? I've gone and worked for the Coinbases, the Geminis, the big
Yep.
exchanges of the world, and still stayed in that industry. But I don't want to do that because politics is my passion, not
Yeah.
crypto. And crypto is just a part of that passion. Um, and so I think having that perspective and self awareness has really helped me navigate as things have just continued to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. I was laughing when you were kind of, talking about this philosophy of like really being in a position to be open for like whatever may come your way. And for some reason, when you said that, I was immediately taken back to a discussion that I had with my parents on their back deck. My mom had just cooked this amazing meal, and I was visiting my folks, and I was about to leave my traditional kind of corporate job that I'd worked very hard to get to. It was a pretty high level leadership position at a wonderful organization out in San Francisco, and I flew back home. I having dinner with my parents, and I said, I'm really thinking about starting my own business, and they kind of looked at me a little puzzled, and they said, so what are going to be kind of your first steps? And I said, well, what I'm most excited about, this is 2016, so this was in the rise of kind of social media content being such a great
Yeah.
tool for building businesses. I said, well, I don't know necessarily what the business is gonna look like, but I do know that I want to create really great YouTube content. And I'm going to allow that to kind of like, build a brand for myself based on my passions and the intersection of that and some market opportunity. It's probably in the learning development space. When I tell you, my second generation Italian mother sitting across the table. The look on her face, was just like, well, you're doing what? And
Yeah.
she looked back at me and she said, so you're leaving this organization so you can make YouTube videos. And it
Yep.
was then that I realized, like, I thankfully caught the maybe the tail end of my generation being able to step into this like agility position of like, you know what, I'm going to go put myself in the marketplace and I'm going to allow opportunities to come with me. And I want you to expand a little bit on the trust piece, because you said
Mhm.
trust was almost transferable with the people that you knew in the crypto space to what you're doing now. Like, give me an example of where you were almost surprised at the fact that like somebody from your days in crypto would trust you to solve problems in a totally different area.
Oh, I mean, there's too many to tell, and it's almost crazy. And the irony is, of course, the crypto, the whole idea was, how do we technologically replace trust? Like, that's what
Yeah.
Bitcoin's all about. But then you just can't replace the relationships between humans, and finding good people and finding good teams, I
Hmm.
still think is the hardest thing to do. And so there were people who I had helped briefly with some legislative work, or I might even just call it some legislative intel. And these are people, one example is this group of guys came and they met me at one of my meetups. So I used to
Hmm.
attend meetups all around the state of
Yep.
Florida and kind of give communities a debrief on what's going on in your state. And so they'd publicize it. I'd get like 100 people in Orlando, 100 people in Tampa, 200 people in Miami. And this group in Orlando comes up to me and they go, "Hey, we just love what you're doing. Wanted to check it out, see how we could help." End up doing a little bit of work with them a year later, just helping them with some legislative stuff. But we kept in touch, a dinner here, a dinner there, going to the gun range, nothing super special. And then about 8 months ago, they go, "Hey, Sam, so we just landed a large government contract, and you're the only person we trust to help us with the
Hmm.
government affairs."
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
like, "Okay, tell me about the contract."
Yeah.
So they give me in the details, and I go, "Oh, this sounds awesome. I can definitely help with that, and I'd love to help with that."
Hmm.
Right? Uh,
That's
that's a
great.
relationship that I would have made, 5 years ago, but I
Yeah.
never expected anything of it. I never looked for anything, but it's just kind of staying in my lane, staying in my field, and trying to be an expert on what I enjoy.
Yeah.
The people around you just generally know that. And so sometimes that creates opportunities that just come out of nowhere.
I love that. One of the best litmus tests that you can have for, are you kind of ready to go out on your own? And I've shared this with a lot of people. If you can get in a room and you can sit down and you can describe your strengths almost as a service, and then you can write down a list of really close contacts that would be interested in working with you. They've got the trust, they bet on
Hmm.
the jockey, not the horse. If you've got those two things, you really are well on your way to a level of confidence that you could start a successful business. The trouble is, so many people don't do that. Like, they don't know how to describe the value that they may bring.
Yeah.
Uh, my business partner and co-founder Norm, he calls it Norm as a service. That was one of the things that, like, prior to joining Thoughtium, and we were a two-person shop, like, he needed us both to get in a room and he needed to be able to describe Norm as a service. Those
Hmm.
those skills, that value that he can bring, that's genuinely unique, that he had been doing for large organizations, that he could go out and sell, to others. And it was clear as day by the end of that workshop that, there's a real value proposition there. And then it's a matter of, okay, are there, 5 to 7 folks that would bet on you regardless of what the service is? And the answer was yes there. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, this is a viable business. I don't think
Hmm.
people are doing that work. And I think people are maybe more focused on, um, you know, building the perfect product or service. And then when it comes to, business development, they're thinking more kind of like broader outreach and,
Hmm.
email marketing and things of that nature before they are like, do I have 5 people that would invest in me? And it sounds like that's maybe what you're building here as you're kind of charting your own career path.
Yeah, I mean, I used to always tell people, for me, having a job's not an issue. It's having a job that I want, right?
Yeah.
Um, if I lost everything today, I had 100 people I could call that I know would hire me, and it would not be. I'd be underutilized, but I'd have a backup, and I
Mm,
know they'd say, "Yeah, we got a position for you here. We can have you do this here," and they would know that, but they would do it to help me out, right? Fortunately, I haven't had to do that, but those are the types of relationships that I've been able to build. And I just find it so fascinating because I think people still don't understand the value of a personal relationship.
yeah.
And we keep hearing things like, oh, your network is your net worth and you got to go and network.
Mm,
But it's not just about networking. It's about just remembering small, stupid details about people. It's about actually, I think, caring about the
mhm,
people around you and having like a childlike wonder with the relationships that you're building and not even thinking always about the business, like really listening.
yeah.
Um, and it makes people want to work with you. And then if you can back that up with talent, right, and actually be able
Mhm,
to provide value, I mean, the amount of people who want to work with you are endless,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I've just found that over time. And maybe it's because I've done the community building on the political side and then I've done the business development. So it's easy for me to marry the two. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's allowed me to be flexible. Even when I'm in, say, I don't have a contract for a month, the first thing that I do is like, okay, what event should I be going to?
Yeah. Right.
Right. Let
Right.
me go to this family office event. Who do I need to catch up with? Who haven't I
Mhm,
talked to in a year? Right. I have time. Right. So
mhm,
who do I need to catch up with and see what's going on? It is a job. Like
yeah.
maintaining relationships with people is not easy. It's
Yeah.
a lot of work. It's a lot of follow up. But I think it's definitely one of the things that has allowed me to be flexible.
Hmm. That's awesome. We talked a little bit about kind of the advantages of staying lean and nimble. We've also talked a little bit about kind of the how to even think about, putting yourself in a marketplace available for new opportunities. The last question that I'll ask you, Sam, is as you think about kind of your experience now as a bit of a multitasker, a professional multitasker, someone who's staying open to what your next might be.
Yeah.
What are maybe one or two like blind spots that we can highlight for folks that maybe you didn't see in terms of um, this your career development and ensuring that you're going about it the right way? Like, have there been like roadblocks that you've hit or challenges that you've had in this season of your life that you're making yourself as available as you are?
Yeah, I definitely two things that I'm slowly getting better at. First one is organization. AI has helped me so much with organization,
Yeah.
right? Meeting people, staying in contact, but also setting agendas, setting a schedule, and it's only getting better. But just even simple things like I talk into AI prompts all the time. Just
Hmm.
here's what I got to do today. I have a million things on my mind, and if I don't spit it out and get a list, I'm going to forget half of them,
Hmm.
right? So AI, just for very simple tasks throughout the day, has really helped me. The other part is just getting a good sense of when you're wasting your time, right? So
Ooh,
it's
that's a good
important to
one.
understand the difference of like there are a lot of times where I would hope something would work. And because I kept hoping it would work as
Mm,
opposed to being realistic about where it
yeah.
is, I
Yeah.
wasted too much time on it. And that goes for people too. There's a lot of people who I really wanted to work with, but because I wanted to work with them, even though it wasn't a good fit, I was wasting time,
Mm,
kind of hoping something like that would come to fruition or happen. So just learning to be more strict and
yeah.
more, I don't want to say less hopeful, but more realistic about where you are in someone else's timeline. Um, and those two things I think are things that I still struggle with, but that I'm getting better with.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, those two things, uh, going out on your own and making sure that you're organized, that is a huge, huge blind spot.
It's tough.
And also just kind of like managing your time and knowing when you're sinking, too much time into something is another watch point. I'll maybe add one. And this is something that I say a lot, even to folks on my team nowadays. And the rule of thumb that I always try to follow is you can't believe in your solution more than who you're trying to sell it to, or who you're talking to, or who you're working with. And I think sometimes, in efforts to define, Anthony as a service, I had this value proposition, this work that I wanted to do, this value that I could bring organizations that I believed very deeply in, and oftentimes maybe believed more in that type of work than the people that were sitting across the table. And as you know, I also like to say the market is the market is the market. So you've got to pay attention to the signals that you're getting or not, even if you believe what you have to offer is just so rare and so differentiated. It's great to have a little bit of reality distortion as an entrepreneur, but to not hear the signals that, hey, what you're offering needs to be refined or potentially pivoted is a bit of a blind spot as well too. So, Sam, thank you so much for stepping into today's conversation. I always love coming back to the table with folks like yourself, especially after a significant amount of time that you and I really haven't been connected day to day. It's so cool to just see the progress in your thinking and the way that you're going about your work, and in this case, your career. And I wish you the best of luck as you continue to influence more and more circles out there.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks as always for having me on.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Talk to you soon. Okay. We want to thank everybody for joining this episode 276 of the Thought Team Navigating Now virtual roundtable series. Hopefully today, maybe a nugget or two, an insight or two for those folks who, are thinking about we call it the next, that role that you are really aspiring to step into. And hopefully you got a couple of pointers on how to maybe put that first or second step forward. That's what this Navigating Now is all about. How can you get 1 or 2% better in the way that you think, act, and lead? And we're just we're thrilled to be here with you all. So we want to thank our LinkedIn community for joining us, and those folks who are tuning in at thoughtteam.com/live. We will see you, no surprise, next week, 3:00 Central.